All right, we're recording. Can you speak into your mic real quick so that way we can do an audio check?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Three, two, one. Hello there, folks. It's Nerdy John here, also known as John Terry. And today I have a very special guest with me, Bagman.
Hello.
Uh, our last two episodes, we discussed World War One and World War Two, but I wanted to take things in a bit of a different direction, as I don't want to get too modern with history yet. So, what better place in history to talk about than the medieval ages?
Woo.
Yeah, nothing like some lovely family relations, burning at the stakes, and diseases. What fun!
Plague, death, and lots of crusades.
Yes, there we go. All right. So, with the fall of the Western Roman Empire, that left a pretty big power vacuum. Nobles, in order to retain control, would give out land in exchange for protection from lesser lords. These lesser lords would then provide soldiers, which we would then call knights, to protect the regions such as peasant farms and the castles. What point of medieval history do you appreciate, Bagman?
Um, I mean, that's a. Uh, I'm British, so a lot of my knowledge revolves around what what went down in good old United Kingdom
Ah,
during
yes.
most of time. But I mean, in my opinion, the most important part of any age is usually how it ends, because that's usually the great turning point of civilization, the ending and the start of any age, as it were.
And I would say the medieval ages ended around the 15th century, right? Does that sound am I
Yeah,
correct on that one?
well, of course it's 16th century, which is because it's a year ahead of.
Yeah, I was thinking of the 1400s for some reason.
Yeah, well, it depends on who you look at because some say it's 1485, some say it's 1527 is the latest, I think.
Ah,
But around that sort of rough area is when it ended.
yeah, because
It'll de-
they started using a lot more musketmen and a lot more pikemen. Knights were kind of becoming less and less necessary at that point, which is what a key feature that people usually associate with the medieval ages.
yeah, knights die out and world empires reform, and a
Mhm.
lot of there's a huge reforms in the world religion. Catholicism becomes less and less popular as we go on, and Protestants sort of the Protestant faith rises rapidly throughout, especially Western Europe.
Right, which I'm sure caused no problems whatsoever.
That caused no problems at all.
No,
It never.
it was just a really peaceful time, and everyone was very understanding of each other's religious beliefs. It caused no problems whatsoever.
Oh God.
Yeah. Uh. Well, oh yeah, and countries started becoming more centralized, stronger because in reality, the only reason why the king was in power during medieval times was because he had enough money and land to pay off people.
It was a lot a lot simpler. It was if you have the swords, you own everything.
Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, who's gonna mess with you? You've got 100 dudes with swords, stabby stab.
Well, I mean, you could always, start a good old revolution.
Oh
That's
yeah.
always fun. Good old.
What's interesting is eventually it got to the point where in order to like legitimize their positions, kings would say that God had given them the divine right to rule over others.
Oh
And
God.
yeah, and so that would prevent people from trying to assassinate them because they would need the Pope's permission in order to kill a king.
Of course, because the whole way the popes of the time decided to keep power was, oh no, the Roman Empire is gone. Technically, there's still a Holy Roman Empire,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll call someone the Holy Roman Emperor, and we'll say that God chose them, even though they didn't. And the Roman Empire is completely and utterly fractured, and
Oh right, it's a bunch of lesser German princes fighting each other, and then there just happens to be that one dude who claims to be emperor out of all of it.
there's that one guy who just paid the Pope a little bit more.
Right. What I find funny though is what we consider like the Holy Roman Empire, the Frankish Empire, which was what it was previously called, was in France, not necessarily Germany.
The way things move about in the period is very fun.
And it's even weirder. You still technically have a Roman emperor still because the Byzantine Empire still existed for quite a while.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you still had empires and things, but a lot of empire stuff, especially with sort of the larger powers. It's a lot of it is contained in the eastern portions of Europe a lot more. Apart from like Spain and Britain, who have gone insane throughout all of early periods of history, it's a lot more happens in the east now.
Yeah.
Lot of empires there.
Well, we should get into. Spain was was originally a region of Iberia called Castile.
Yes.
Through the good old through marriages, conquest, and then retaking of land from Muslim kingdoms, because a good portion of Iberia was actually controlled by Muslim empires or small kingdoms. Um, this I think this is like they continued this like during like what you consider the end of or very late period of the medieval warfare. They started having reconquistador events where they would take back the land and then have a good old burning at the cross for all those filthy Muslims.
How dare they?
Speaking of, do not take that out of context, Twitter. I do not hate Muslims. I'm merely saying what they did to them. I don't want no hashtag cancel nerdy.
Trending on Twitter.
everyone's
Small
gonna,
pod.
everyone's gonna be like, wait, who's this guy? Who are we canceling now? But yeah, religion plays a very, very important part during the medieval ages because that's what a lot of, especially the Pope, that's what they used to control.
Well, yeah, I mean, religion is important because science is existent, but science is a lot more warfare orientated or just general well-being. It's not very, I mean, yeah, well, it's not a very free-thinking society at all.
Mm-hmm.
But religion is the only thing that sort of separates and categorizes people, and it's the only thing that tells a peasant that one day they might have a better life.
Right. What I find funny is before the Reformation, all the Bibles were in Latin, and so only the priests knew Latin, and so that's why churches, congregations were so important because the people had to go to them because they couldn't understand Latin. The only way you could be given any lesson in Latin is if you were dedicating yourself to the church.
And who wants to dedicate themselves to the church?
People who want
What
money.
are the what are the benefits apart from whatever you want, and no one will say anything against you? Because if they do, they get hanged.
What I find funny is,
Burned.
like for the Catholicism for a while, if you were a religious head, you kind of had to be chaste. You know, you couldn't be with a woman.
Oh yeah, chastised.
Yeah, and what's funny is a lot of nobles actually controlled popes through either briberies or be like, hey, you know this noble woman here, she's beautiful. You know, don't you want to spend some time with her, good old pope boy?
Good old medieval prostitution.
Oh yeah, hey, it's legal as long as no one finds out about it.
And even if they do find out about it, if you
Hey, I'm
kill
the
them quick enough,
oh yeah, hey, I'm the pope. What you gonna do?
what, you gonna speak out against the entire Catholic Church?
Oh yeah, that's gonna go well for you, buddy. There was no video taking devices at the time, so it's your word against the popes. That's not gonna
You
go
just
down well.
you just see a small there's just a monk writing everything he sees done really quickly.
Oh yeah, it's like during court cases where they have the guy who draws and documents everything.
Uh,
So
brilliant.
Oh.
Scandalous popes.
oh yeah, there were a lot of scandalous popes though, and it was a weird power dynamic between, like, as you mentioned earlier, the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope, because the Pope grant is the one who grants the Holy Roman Emperor the crown, but at the same time, the Emperor is viewed as the chosen one of God.
Isn't there an entire period of history where it's very confusing in the Holy Roman Empire because the Holy Roman Emperor can essentially choose who is more worthy of being the Pope than.
Yeah, because he could be like, oh, hey, I want this bishop to control this area. And if that bishop has a lot of influence, he can become a cardinal, and the cardinal are the ones who can become the pope. So it's a very weird power dynamic. And for a while, the Holy Roman Emperor was a hereditary title. So it was one family controlling it for quite a while. But then they decided to have like a sort of voting system, I guess you would call it. Like all the princes would be like, hey, we want this dude as the emperor.
No wonder it was insane. Everyone was just related to each other.
Oh God, yeah. If we want to get into it, one of the princes of Spain, when they did an autopsy on him, there was like water in his system instead of blood. His heart was the size of a walnut.
Oh God!
Yeah, and paintings. You ever seen like a painting of some old medieval monarchs or nobles? Yeah,
Oh,
that's usually that's what we consider like a Photoshop or an Instagram filter, because the painter would purposely make them in a more beautiful light, because oftentimes, yeah, these royals were pretty deformed.
oh yeah, like there's isn't Queen Elizabeth is like infamous for her artists being very, very careful about what they actually showed,
Mm-hmm.
especially towards the end of her life because she got very sick doing good old Spanish Inquisition,
Yeah.
which of course failed horribly because go Britain.
Yeah. As a technical descendant of the British, yeah.
Everything descends from Britain somehow.
Yeah, some way, shape, and form. It's like how we're all technically related to Genghis Khan,
Oh God.
or I'm sorry, Attila the Hun.
That's why we all get so passionate doing sports games. That's that
Yeah.
the little part of us.
Speaking of Genghis Khan, the Mongolian Empire.
Oh yeah.
The guy actually managed to unite almost all of Asia, and he was heading straight for Europe for a short period of time.
I've noticed whenever I research history, I notice something hilarious, which is the one thing that seems to stop almost every Eastern empire from entering Britain is Vienna. Every time it's Vienna.
Good old
just-
Vienna.
Just can't crack that one.
Nope.
Because it's nearly been cracked so many times. The Ottoman Empire tried twice and they failed.
And then, you
Within the
know,
same century.
before England even technically
well, now that I
formed.
know, as soon as the error message appears, that means everything's working fine. Then we have that
Oh, wait, hang on.
to go with. So, hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shadow, the internet personality with the best hair, and welcome to Live and Wired episode 59. All right.
I'm gonna have a bit to edit out there. I forgot I was waiting for a stream to pop up. And so it all of a sudden just came on. I'm like, oh wait, what's going on? So I had to open up my browser, and so I don't want to show that. But yeah, like even before Britain technically formed, when it was still like a tribal island during like the height of the Roman Empire, when Julius Caesar was conquering it.
Which, I mean, can I just say, for a bunch of savages with sticks, we defended that country for quite a while.
Yes, but then he only took the southern part of it.
Oh yeah, Scotland
Like
was.
Scotland and Ireland were untouched.
I mean, Ireland was untouched by England for a while as well. Like,
Never for a tip for anyone: never make a drunk Irishman angry, or a Scottish person for that matter. Oh, the Welsh. You can poke them once or twice.
you can. Wow. He's been. If I wasn't here, that would have been a much worse joke.
No. Oh yeah, in all seriousness, the rivalry between Britain and France during the medieval ages.
It is the best rivalry of all of history.
We're still waiting for the sequel.
Of course, after Waterloo, France never recovered.
Yeah. In all seriousness, what's funny is like Norway, the Kingdom of Norway. It was settled by the Vikings because France was like, "Hey, don't raid us anymore. If we give you this little piece of land, you know, this could be beneficial for both of us." So the leader of Norway became the King of England, and I believe that's still the bloodline to this day, because England had a previous king, but he kind of died.
Well, okay. I don't know. Wait, I know this one very well. They make you study this extensively. We had, so it was whatever, 1487, one of those. Battle of Bosworth wasn't. No, was it Bosworth or Hastings? It was Bosworth. Battle of Bosworth. You've got good old William the Conqueror, who is technically related to our previous king. He's a distant cousin, I think. Then you've got Godfrey and Godfrey. Godfrey is a distant cousin, and Godfrey is the brother. Godfrey is the current pseudo king of England, and Godfrey attacks England first. He attacks somewhere else, and Godfrey goes off to attack him. And then, of course, William comes, and with a starving army who are, badly equipped now, and also they've been fighting. They've lost a couple men. They have to go fight William like 3 days later. They managed to march across all of England in like a matter of days because they just had to.
Which I imagine would be pretty tiring, especially carrying all the equipment.
Oh yeah, extremely tiring. Because of course the English were, the English weren't better equipped because, the Normans had advances in military technology. We were essentially just peasants with whatever we could find. But and then we even had the strategic advantage,
Yeah,
which is
because
so annoying.
yeah, because you guys
We
had the
had-
high ground.
We had the hill.
You could
But,
have won.
In a stupid attempt, it was a cavalry charge by the enemy, which failed, and they retreated. And of course, Godfrey took this as the perfect opportunity to charge William,
hmm
which was a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake. And he got shot in the face by an arrow.
Ouch.
And I think it was a day later, William marched into London and was crowned King of England.
Because I'm pretty sure at that
And-
point, it's like, hey, you know what would be nice? If you crown me king, otherwise, some villages might burn.
And yeah, and then of course, because William took over, that's the evolution of the English language there. Because I think it's something funny. Like we used to call bread wheat, I think, and then he went, nope, this is bread.
Yeah, and it's like like English peasants would call a cow, but then when when you cooked it for the Norway nobles,
Normans,
would-
it would be beef.
yeah, the Normans would call it beef.
Which that's brilliant. And that was the beginning of then. You have a long line of about, I think it's like 55, 58, one of those numbers of royals, but they're all loosely related in some way, I think. Because I think the only sort of cut-off point is Henry Tudor, Henry VII, who
Mhm.
was a Welsh prince. I think he's very, very distantly related to the king at the time, which is King Richard, I think. Richard III, I think. I can't remember exactly. He's very distantly related. He's a distant, nephew or one of those because incest, blah, blah, blah. And the way he's related then is, of course, he marries the daughter of a noble who is more directly related to King Richard, and that's how the bloodline then continues on to this day.
Mhm.
And that bloodline has now continued all throughout history, because then we have Richard IV, who is Richard Stuart, who is from Scotland, the only remaining sole surviving family member of the Tudor line, because Elizabeth had no heirs, so that was the closest we could get.
That's right. Elizabeth I didn't have any direct descendants, did she?
No, she got the I think it's known that she accepted many marriage proposals to keep peace, but she never actually conceived child or actually physically married a man.
Do you think she was just she was unable to, or do you think she just didn't do it?
Well, she was. I reckon if we try hard enough, we could probably find that some lowly servant had something, and there's somewhere out there Elizabeth has a secret
Love
line
child.
of
Yeah.
a blood child who will kick Queen Elizabeth II off the throne in any second now.
I mean, there has to be something in those genes, though. Because how old is the queen right now? She's in her 90s, isn't she?
She's in her 90s. She's still going strong.
Right. Yeesh.
It's the power of Yorkshire tea.
I know. What's funny is, and what often people don't know is her husband is still titled prince. People think as soon as you marry a king or queen, you automatically get the title of the opposite one. That doesn't seem to be the case, though.
No, it's not the case. It's it's a really confusing way of how it works. It is birthright, so it's whoever has the birthright is the king, and then whoever marries is prince or princess.
Right, and if
But-
there's no male heirs, then the queen's able to ascend.
Yeah, that's how it's. I think that's how it's. That's how it's always worked. I don't know if that's still how it works now. It's more because you can choose to give up your title now a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of it's always been the only reason Elizabeth managed to become queen is because there were no there were no male heirs.
Well, there originally was a male heir, but then he
There
kind of went, no,
was.
nope. I want to marry
Um,
this. I want to marry this American woman.
Yes, and he was exiled and he lived. I think he went to he went everywhere. I think he went to Nazi Germany.
Right, and people were like, do you support them?
He exiled to Nazi Germany for about 4 years,
Mhm.
and then he exiled to America, and then
Which makes sense.
for the rest of his life he lived in France then until he died.
Hmm.
But yeah, and now we have too many heirs.
His descendants are still alive though, technically, right? Because didn't he have some kids with the American lady?
Probably he did. So there's probably, but of course, because the whole thing is once you're cut off from the royal family, you're technically no longer a royal. So
Right, and it's the same
wha-
way if you're a bastard, right? Because if you're a bastard, you automatically have no claim to a throne.
well, that's I think that's probably true now, but of course, well, William the Conqueror was a bastard child, and
True,
well,
true.
his legacy is now lived on and gone down in history as the English monarch that changed it all.
So, obviously, as an American, we don't keep up with the royal family, and so nowadays it's a constitutional monarchy over there in the UK, and
Yes.
so would you say like the royal family is more popular than like a movie star, or do they still have political influence?
They have actually. This is very fun. They're not allowed to have political influence. It's against their code of royalty to comment on any of the political comings and goings of the UK
Oh,
or the
really?
fifth world. Unless it's like stating in a speech like a war or something, or and commending people for bravery.
Mm-hmm.
They're not technically allowed to. They have to be very careful about what they say. They can't support a separate prime minister. And there's also rules for prime ministers. Prime ministers aren't allowed to say anything that a royal says to them. Same with normal people. You're not allowed to say it's confidential, whatever. If a royal says something to you alone, and like a member of the press or another member of the public doesn't hear it, it's illegal for you to speak it out loud. Although they can't really tell if you do to your family, so yeah.
Right.
But I wouldn't say they're more. I'd say in Britain, they're definitely as popular as a film star because everyone knows who our queen is and our royalty. Apart from, I know a couple of very ignorant people who really, really don't know anything about what's going on.
Well, gee, who's the queen? Who's the king?
But
How
Yeah,
many grandchildren does she have?
oh god, the ones who can claim heir to the throne is we got I think there's about 8 of them who can claim heir to the throne now. And of course, it's order of age and always. I don't think we do it males first anymore. I think it's just done off of age now.
Right, it's whoever's the oldest now, right?
Yeah, because the worst thing about it is that a large portion of our princes and princesses won't ever be able to become king or queen because Queen Elizabeth has lived for so long now that
Right, they're probably all like, just die, you old hag.
because now we got I think it's Prince Andrew or whatever his name is.
Well, now watch, I'm saying all this now, and she's gonna die like tomorrow.
Oh god, no. That would be I think there is a special thing where you have 2 days of mourning for a monarch if they die, so
Hey, that's a good way to getting a day off school then there, I guess.
well, we got a week off now anyway, so
Oh, nice.
it's absolutely useless.
But yeah, you know what's interesting is technically there are still like descendants of the original full-on Roman Empire. I believe it's the King of Spain. He has right to it by blood.
Oh.
I think the whichever relative still remains of the old French bloodline. I think they have it by an inheritance right. And then there are two other monarchs that have like some kind of claim to the throne.
I would really love it if suddenly, overnight, the world just went back to the old days of medieval Europe, where it's
Except we all have iPhones.
we can finally record what the Pope does in his off time.
Right. Hey, Pope there, what you doing with those young lads?
Oh no! Oh God! Yeah, Catholicism is well, it's well, of course, it's a perfectly fine religion. There's parts to it which aren't good, the Pope touching kids, but
To be fair, that's not in the scriptures. It's just what they do in their off time.
But the problem with that is a problem with medieval history a lot is, and a funny thing I always find is somehow we're in a more homophobic society today as we were in some of the ancient times.
That's
It's
kind of funny
insane.
considering that they would burn you for it.
Well, of course, when Catholicism blew up, then it was when Catholicism and more Christian views sort of merged, then it was less and less legal.
Right, because
But-
didn't Alexander the Great have a male lover?
I think he did.
'Cause,
All I
like,
know is that
I know in ancient Rome is that it was actually pretty accepted.
it was accepted to the point that it was known that it was accepted in a weird way. The way it was accepted was it was not allowed to be a romantic relationship in the way that you could get married or live together. It
But
was
hey, if
more-
it just happens, it happens.
it was really more of a it was just for fun. That's the
It-
worst but also the best way to put it.
Right, and put it in a modern equivalent, it's the equivalent of it's okay, we have socks on.
Yeah, it's because in a really good sort of exempt from Spartan. I know Spartan is way earlier than this, but just to show
Right.
how homophobia has changed, back then it was considered that a soldier should be more close to his fellow soldier than he was to his own wife.
Well, it doesn't help that they oiled up for battle. I mean, have you seen 300? I know that's not an accurate movie, but have you seen it, my dude?
It's the gayest film ever.
Right, and it's like it tries so hard not to be gay, it just looks more gay.
It tries hard, and then you've just got
It's this episode's supposed to be on medieval history. It's not a movie podcast.
it's not a movie podcast. That's another time and another day.
Right, I wouldn't mind doing a movie podcast though.
Is there someone? I think someone shouted at me to do one of food.
Oh,
Anyway,
anyway, I'm sorry to give you a quick shout out. Bagman here is a Twitch streamer, but he really
Oh.
loves history, so that's why he's on the show here today.
I
We're
love
30
me
minutes in, and I just explained to him like, what exactly you do.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Yeah,
The voice that you've been hearing this whole time
right,
actually does other things.
right. And yeah, yeah. Everyone's looking at you on the screen like, no, that's the guy's name.
Yeah, but yeah. Hello, I'm Bagman. I love history so much.
Hey, and technically, he's our first foreign guest. Everyone,
Whoa!
yeah, he's not from my classroom.
It's weird when you're British and you're considered foreign.
I mean, by technical standard, a Canadian to me is technically a foreigner. It's anyone outside. It's because the technical definition is anyone outside your country.
Or Xeno scum, if you want to be.
Oh, let's not get into politics right now. Now let's talk about politics in Europe.
we can talk about that.
Yeah, because that's way behind us.
No one will get offended by that, right?
I hope not.
Random Spanish person in the comics. How dare you?
Well, if I have, I'm gonna be more surprised if I have a Spanish viewer. Yeah, to
Now
the, the two of you who watch me.
Now, the Nerdy John podcast, now translated into Spanish.
Hola, soy Dora.
I can't speak any Spanish. I speak a lot of Welsh.
Oh, Welsh has his own separate language.
Did you not know? Oh, God.
I'm sorry.
Oh, here we go.
Oh no, I think I just triggered him.
No, you haven't triggered me. What triggers me is when Hans gets confused at the fact that Wales is a different country to England.
Well, I mean, it was for a short period of time, and then England was kind of like, "Hey, we like your
It
piece of
was for-
land. Let us have it."
It was for an extremely long portion of time. It was very hard for England to take us. There's a story of I think
Right,
it was
because
King...
isn't like the Welsh region of the UK isn't it kind of mountainous, or am I completely wrong on that?
It's super mountainous. It's got the biggest mountain in Britain.
Right, so I imagine if you're not native to those regions, it's pretty hard to traverse when you're in heavy armor that is at least 100 pounds in total.
There's a story of when King Harold first attempted to invade Wales. His entire army, the Welsh army, I think it was Prince Llewellyn and his army. All they did was they waited at the foot of a mountain for rain to come, and when the rain came, all of the King Harold's army got stuck in the mud because their armor was too heavy and they got squished. They just got stuck, and they all had to go home.
That's what we call sniping opportunity, boys and girls.
And then the longbows came.
Can you speak a bit of Welsh? I'm interested.
Of course. Helo, dwi enw i Rhys, a dwi'n dod o Cymru. Dwi'n hoffi siarad Cymraeg yn fel da. Dwi yn hoffi hanes, a dwi'n hoffi siarad amdano fe. Cymru am byth, whoop whoop.
Hello? He might be trolling me this entire time and just spoke gibberish, or he might have spoke an actual language. Comment down below if you know the answer.
I spoke a real language, I thought. Every word that came out of my mouth was... But yeah, that's Welsh, which I've been told is a mixture of... From someone who spoke a lot of languages, they said it sounded like a mixture of French, English, Dutch, Russian, and for some reason Islamic.
That's odd. Well, it's like I would say Arabic more than just Islamic.
That's what he told me. I'm directly quoting him here.
So hey, I got a question for you. How come you guys won't give up the northern bit of Ireland?
Well, no, we have. Well, okay. Oh no, this is very easy to answer actually. It's because Northern Ireland is Protestant and the rest of Ireland is Catholic.
Is everyone worried?
It's not.
Is everyone worried about religious reformation to Electric Boogaloo?
Well, I think it's more. I think Northern Ireland want to stay. That's the whole thing. Like they because I mean in the 90s and the 80s we had a whole war there in Ireland.
They hate Irish people hate Irish people so much they want to stay separate.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's like a full on it's full on terrorism, like what happens sometimes.
Right,
Not
because
anymore.
I have heard of like Irish separatists.
Yeah, the IRA, the Irish Republican Army.
Because I like the Cranberries. I know like the Zombie. Their entire song was about some terrorist attacks that happened.
Yes. Yeah, it's about. I know the exact story. It's about a terrorist attack by the IRA, which killed two boys. One was 10 and one was 12, I think.
That's sad.
It is very sad. War has many casualties, and
Mm-hmm.
The worst of casualties is civilian loss because it's the one that you don't choose.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you ever choose to die in war. Not saying
Well,
that.
yeah,
but as
right.
in,
But it's like when you enlist in an army, you make the conscious like choice. I might die.
I might die. But as a civilian, you never think I'm gonna die.
Right. Now this is a very important part of the discussion. Medieval armies weren't entirely made up of knights because knights were a
No,
very
yeah.
fine-tuned resource.
There was
In-
only because a knight controlled. Well, it's if I remember correctly, it's a lord controls a knight, which controls a levy,
Mhm.
and of course a levy is made up of, you know, any
peasants?
sort of any peasant who you can give a spear to and go, yep, charge.
Yeah. Either you charge or I kick you off my land or you die.
Because I think it's there's actually, when you look at the numbers of like knights in medieval period, it's actually a surprisingly small number.
Mhm.
Because of course there's a couple of, because of course a knight is
A
there-
highly
there's a-
skilled warrior, right?
knight is a highly skilled warrior, but there are a couple of knights who are sort of, they went against the grain. There's a few enigmas during the whole. I think knight, one of them, Sir Wilfrid or whatever, the one who wrote poetry about the way he beat everyone up.
And then I kicked him in the nuts.
he's the first ever recorded human being to use the phrase "kick him in the ass."
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. Because this knight, I think he was a French knight, and he worked for French king, and then he worked for a French lord, and then he got disavowed.
Mhm.
Then he rebelled, and I think he went on an entire like sort of mini conquest through France, and he just wrote poetry about his battles, and because of course the problem with this is a lot of it is poetry. That's the history we have on him. So a lot of it is dramatized, but we
Right,
do know
'cause
that
because it's like and then three women came to me and and I enjoyed their company. It's like, yeah, dude, yeah, sure.
of course, but of course we do know he existed because the poetry was there, and the only fully 100% fact is he was the first ever person to use "kick you in the ass."
Like that's the problem with the Braveheart movie. People, I think it's like the historical figure that movie's based on might entirely be fabricated through lies of letters.
That's the whole yeah. I mean Braveheart, and that's the whole problem with King Arthur as well. Is there's no, I don't think there's any. If I remember correctly, there's no foolproof evidence that there was a king called Arthur from Wales and he was a good king. There's proof that there was a tyrant called Arthur,
Oh boy.
because apparently, like the whole thing is, of course, Arthur wrote his own legends, sort of thing, and
Right.
he
It's
wasn't
like
he wasn't a good king at all.
still Arthurian legend's pretty interesting though.
Arthurian legend is very nice. It's a very good part of history. It's a good part of history because it's the part of history where a lot of the imagination around sort of knights and nobles and princesses comes from, and dragons and ladies who come out of lakes. They provide you with a sword.
And plus we got some good anime characters out of that.
Weebs unite!
My fellow weebs. We shall conquer the world.
We shall fight them on the beaches.
With our anime pillows. And we will show them what true culture is. Okay. So do you think, okay, you know how there was a period in time when like Japan was modernizing, that there were samurai who went against
Oh,
it, and
It's
so
the
they had a rebellion about it.
Satsuma Revolution.
Right. Do you think there was ever like a knights equivalent to that in Europe, or do you think because of the slow progression of technology that it was easier to integrate, or because I know like we technically still have knights now. Paul McCarthy is technically a knight, but obviously it's a ceremonious thing now. But was there ever a time where knights were like, "Hey, we don't like this, let us still have our stuff"?
Um, I don't think that in the way that Japan sort of quickly got rid of the ancient civilization of samurai and that
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, and especially I know in Britain, it was way more of a slow decline because we still had knights. Because again, we still technically have knights today, and it was more of a slow decline of they slowly lost the ability to control land, and slowly over time they just became soldiers, and the glory of a knight got lost in myth and legend. But
Mm-hmm.
apart from individual cases of like one certain knight taking his levy and taking a lord's head off or something,
Because I know there were like night rebellions from that stuff. Because they were like, "Hey, I don't like you no more. I'm gonna take your land."
Yeah, there's small night rebellions, but I don't think there's ever been any big thing because it's because with samurai it's a lot different because in a way it's a lot more like two different armies.
Mhm.
In with knights and things, it's a lot more of just restructuring the same army that we already had. And of course, when William the Conqueror came in, it's sort of the end of what we knew. And no one rebelled against William because,
They were kind of
well,
afraid of him.
would you rebel against a man who just killed your proxy king in
Right.
one battle?
And
then took you-
that king took out Vikings.
Yeah, come on.
So
come on,
he
guys,
beat
you
the guy who beat the Vikings. So do you really want to mess with that guy? Because Vikings
come
for a good while in Europe were the kind of bane of everyone's existence. They couldn't be defeated. That's why France created Normandy. It's like, hey, stop wrecking our stuff. We'll give you this piece of land. Just stop wrecking our stuff.
It's oh, who is it now? Is it what's the name of the British period where paganism was the British religion? Is it
That's right. Oh, it was before
Oh,
England formed.
Saxons? That's the one.
Right. And
Because the way Vikings got into Britain was the Saxons. The Saxons were invaded by France, I think, and Britain was
Mhm.
like to sort of the German states or whatever, and the Vikings. They went, "Hey, we'll give you some land and a lot of money if you come just live on one of our coasts." So they'll be too scared, and it
Right.
worked until the Vikings demanded more money.
Because what's funny is Christianity wasn't actually the top religion. It was paganism, and
Paganism was the top.
and it was a lot of smaller kingdoms because it was very tribal for a time.
Yeah, it was. Of course, the whole. It's still always been. London holds the most. It's never changed.
Right, because I think that was one of the lands that the Romans were able to take over. So they had a lot. They were able to get a lot of the Roman wealth during that time before they fell.
Because London is sort of if you control London, you control England. Because
Yeah, because you have a legitimate right to the English throne, I guess, in a way.
yeah, well, legitimate as in you killed everyone else, so I guess it's you.
Hey! When there's no one else.
But yeah, it's a lot. Saxon England is a lot of because there's two I guess outweighing periods going on at the same time. You've got Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, which is going through its Celtic period, and then you've got England, which is Saxon, which is a bit more modernized and a bit more structured politically and everything. It's a lot less fractured and a lot more one king rules over lords who rule over their knights who rule over their levy.
Because wasn't it for a while? It wasn't even right before England conquered them. Ireland was never really united. Am I correct on that? They weren't really united until
Ireland
Britain.
was. This is going to be a weird comparison, but Ireland was the equivalent of the Skellige Isles in The Witcher.
Oh, okay.
Just a bunch of angry bandit kings raiding each other.
And then Britain came in because they were all focused on each other. Britain was able to take over, and then they became a united country technically.
The United Kingdom.
Yeah, and so like after World War One, they were kind of like, "Hey, we want independence," but then the northern part was like, "Yeah, we kind of still want to be part of the United Kingdom."
It was after World War One that kind of started, but after World War Two, that kicked off in a major way.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the way that became a full-on revolution after that, which is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's surprising when you look back how long it really did take England to take the others, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales, considering England is the biggest and it was the most structured.
What's funny is Norway actually had a bit of land in the British Isles for quite a bit of time.
It's yeah, well, before William and everything, before the end of the medieval period, Britain is a lot more. Britain is a lot more fighting amongst itself to care about the rest of Europe. Apart from France, for some reason we've always seemed to care about France.
Right, because William's from France, not technically from France because of Norway being part of France.
Yeah, but it's always been no one likes France in England.
Is that still a thing today? Like, do you guys make cheeky jokes about the French as well?
Goddamn cheese eating surrender monkeys.
It was one time they surrendered. One time they surrendered in history. They won the majority of their wars, but we still make fun of them for World War II.
I'm sorry, but at the most important war in history, then you fold.
Yeah. I think people forgive them because they make decent wine. Apparently.
I mean, I don't drink, so
I'm underage.
Oh God, yeah, American was 21.
Yeah. We can be drafted when we're 18 and we can vote when we're 18, but heaven forbid if we drink at 18.
Oh, I love the whole argument of how in Britain you can sign up for the army when you're 16. Like you can't officially go to combat, but you could sign up to training and everything when you're 16. And...
Oh yeah, well like the school I go to, we have like Air Force programs.
But it's just the best argument I ever heard is, how come I can join the military at 16, but I can't buy Call of Duty till I'm 18?
Well, you see, there video games train you to be killers. You know, I know this is about this is supposed to be about medieval Europe to get it online. Okay. If that logic actually worked, then I would be using Rock Band to increase my guitar skills. I would be you would have coaches play like Madden to increase their skills. That's not how it works, buddy.
That's not how it works.
Because a controller doesn't give you a kickback that, say, a gun would.
Oh, another thing when was Oliver Cromwell a thing? When did he happen?
The Cromwell?
The good old Oliver Cromwell. What a legend.
I'm gonna need a. I'm sorry.
Do you know who Oliver Cromwell is?
I don't think I do.
Well, he wasn't medieval, but Oliver Cromwell was. How do I put it?
He's looking at
like,
the Google Wiki right now.
I looked to remember when he was born. No, he's the easiest way to put it is he's the guy who ended the British monarchy for 5 years.
Oh no.
Yeah, this guy's serious business. He's a partisan English general who took part in a revolution in and he won, and he entirely wiped out the British monarchy for 5 years.
What made the British monarchy come back?
I think King Richard went about and he collected loyalists, and they just came back. And Cromwell kind of fell apart because
Oh
nobody
wait, Oliver. Okay, this was yeah. Okay, I remember this. Yeah.
no one really liked being a partisan because he banned Christmas.
Not Christmas. Not little
The
Timmy.
dude banned Christmas. I mean, come on, you're gonna revolt against the guy who banned Christmas.
Right. It's like it's based not even for the king at that point. It's based on Christmas principle. Like even if you're not religious, you celebrate Christmas.
The best part about him is that one of his laws was mince pies were not to be consumed at
Mince
all.
pies?
Mince pies are little round Christmassy pastries filled with like sweetened berries and stuff, basically.
Oh, that doesn't sound too bad.
I personally don't like them, but
Was this dude not Christian?
no. Partisan is the form of Christianity where you no, you should not derive any form of joy, happiness, or smiling is sinful. It's considered sin.
Oh, he's one of those guys. Oh, one of those
Yeah.
guys where it's like
So-
anything that brings you joy is sinful. We should be miserable for the rest of our lives, and so that way.
Indeed. And he banned eating mince pies. This was a big thing, of course, because everyone likes mince pies, and they were a big British thing.
They revolted because there was no mince pies.
The best part about it is that law was never abolished.
So
In-
it's still legal technically today.
Technically, to this day, upon a technicality, it is still illegal to eat a mince pie in Britain.
So if I just went up to a copper, like if I visit one of these days, and I just went up to a copper and ate one of those pies, I'm gonna get tackles to the ground.
Well, it's a law that I don't think people remember. It was such a stupid law that it got forgotten about.
Well, watch. You're gonna have that one police officer who's like, "You're not allowed to do that, sir."
But
In
of
my-
course, because
In my neck
I
of
heard
the
there is-
woods, it's illegal to hunt whales on a Sunday.
why on a Sunday specifically?
I don't know. I guess because it's the Lord's Day.
The Lord doesn't like it when we kill whales.
And it's not entirely the U.S. It's just like the state I live in or like the province.
Oh yeah, I love the whole. Each state has its individual laws, and
Each state has its God-given right.
is it? I think it's Arizona that has the law that for a pickle to be considered a pickle, it must bounce at least once.
Yes. I think there's also a law in what is it, Oklahoma, where you're not allowed to write books.
What?
It's like the pastry law. It's a stupid law that no one enforces, but it's still technically a thing.
That's
I
brilliant.
could be completely wrong on the state. I know that a law exists somewhere.
No book writing for you.
Right. And to get into that a bit, like you guys call countries states, but like what we like in the U.S. would consider a state, you guys call provinces. Am I correct on that?
Yes, I think so.
Because like,
I mean,
for formation of the United States, it was each state was its own thing. It was like technically because I think the idea for it was technically we're all ruled by an individual. It's just hey, all the states get together and delegate a few things. But then obviously that idea didn't quite work out because you can't run a government like that.
yeah, the whole. I think the difference between a state and a province is a state has its own. A state can have its own individual laws, its own individual militia, etc.
Mhm.
And a province is simply a region that's controlled. It's it doesn't have its own unique laws. It follows the laws of its country and only its country. It doesn't have its own unique law. It's a province is just an area,
Mhm.
basically. Because I know we've got, I think there's about 5 provinces left in Wales, which are the provinces are what is left of the old kingdoms of Wales. And I
So,
think the only
sorry,
only
go ahead.
only 2 of the current Welsh provinces are still the roughly the original areas of which the kingdoms they came from sort of controlled.
Do you think
is
there's ever
quite-
going to be a point in time where the United Kingdom disbands and each like individual region becomes its own country again?
I think that could very well be a possibility. It's getting closer.
Or are you
Um,
guys all pretty cozy staying in the same country for now?
Not really, not at all. Actually, it's very because we got Brexit, which is.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that lovely situation.
But I think I really do think that if if England pushed everyone in the right direction, I think a lot of countries would go, wait, we don't like this.
Right,
We'll
because it wasn't like Scotland was threatening to leave the United Kingdom if
Scotland nearly did. They were so very close.
Hmm.
They held a vote and they voted to stay.
Was it like close? Was it like almost a 50-50 or was it
I
like a
think
landslide?
I do think it was very close. It seems to be a lot of the time anything for independence from England